Hello, and thanks for watching Proactive. Chesapeake Financial Shares, the parent company of Chesapeake Bank and Chesapeake Wealth Management, has reported second quarter results this week. Joining you with all the details is CEO Jeff Szyperski. Jeff, very good to speak to you today.
Nice to be seen and speak with you, Stephen.
So, Jeff, you've reported an increase in earnings for the 3 months to end June, which you attribute to strong asset quality. Tell us more about the performance.
Sure. Going into 2022, we were really concerned about what things would look like with the pandemic lingering, but we've had a good first 2 quarters. We've had some good asset growth, and then our loan quality is as strong as it's ever been, with non-performing at 0.46%. That's roughly 60% of where it was the same time last year, and last year's number was low. So we feel good about that, especially with as I said, tumultuous times looking forward. I think we're positioned well going into what could be a difficult time.
We'll get back to that in just a moment, but looking at the second quarter to end June, there was an increase in earnings. It would have been even stronger because last year, the second quarter performance was skewed by a $660,000 non-recurring payment. So really strong growth for the quarter.
Yeah, it was about a 23% increase quarter over quarter from the second quarter of last year after you take out those PPP fees that we recognized in income. So it was relatively extremely strong quarter for us. We were pleased with it.
I mean, you talked about moving into tumultuous times, Jeff, and I presume you've got slowing growth, we've got inflation, which could lead to stagflation. How are you positioned for this? What are the headwinds, and how can you position yourself?
We have just started to see the slowdown of some of the lending pipeline. We had an extremely strong, especially commercial loan pipeline, and still do, but we see new inputs into that pipeline slowing down as rates have increased. We have 3 specialty lines of business that they're not entirely countercyclical, but they're largely countercyclical. And so in prior slowdowns, they have helped boost our earnings even when the growth rate of the bank has slowed somewhat. So we anticipate more of that going into the latter part of 2022 into 2023.
You also point out in the commentary that mortgage originations have been steady, but you see that slowing down in the second half of the year as well.
Yeah, we still have some loans that have been in the pipeline mortgage-wise that are starting to close now and tail out. We're not seeing new applications. We're still seeing some construction lending that will go into mortgages for us, but in general, the rate increase has put the brakes on most of that type of lending. Mortgage rates right now are, from a Freddie Mac perspective, are roughly double where they were this time last year.
Jeff, you mentioned non-performing assets coming down to 0.46% at the end of June. Can you maintain it at that level, do you think?
I'd like to think we could. I'm a realist though, Stephen. If there is a recession going into 2023, that number most likely will creep up because economics is economics. It's just the way it is. But for it to be so extremely low going into that, we think we're really well positioned for that. And I would also say our business customers are starting to play a little bit more defensively also. We see that with the loan slowdown. They're not leveraging as much. They're throttling back. So they're not running wide open into these rate increases and a potential recession either. They're being very prudent in how they're managing their balance sheets also.
Jeff, are you also taking a more cautious approach to lending?
We have never changed our lending standards, Stephen. So we don't see any need to do that right now. We've maybe we put more scrutiny on loan exceptions, whether they're loan to value exceptions or debt service coverage ratio exceptions. We've gotten a little bit more conservative with that, but in general, we pretty much stick with our lending standards, and in good times we don't liberalize them, or in tough times we don't make them more conservative. We're pretty consistent in that regard, and it has served us well through the years.
You're also pretty consistent with your dividends, Jeff, because you've raised the dividend by 7.1% to 15 cents per share. So good news for shareholders.
Yep, we raised the 7.1% from 14 cents a share to 15%. And this will take us into our 30th year, but we have 29 straight years of dividend increases. And so through the '08 recession, through the pandemic, we've been able to raise our dividends based on our earnings every year. So we're here to serve the shareholder. They're our owners, and so we're very cognizant of that, as well as our return on equity. How good a return are we providing them?
How are you finding the third quarter so far, Jeff? And what's your outlook for the remainder of the year?
We do see, as I mentioned before, I think some of our specialty lines of business are trending favorably. So they're going the right direction. We feel that will somewhat countervail a slowdown in new lending activity. We see that coming. We feel like we'll end 2022 in strong fashion. It'll just be, I think the second half of the year will be very different than what the first half of the year was. But we're still optimistic about it, but it'll be more difficult than the first half of the year has been, would be my estimation, just with the sharp level rate increases that the Fed is signaled that they will be laying down.
Jeff, I'm sure you'll keep us updated on any progress, but thank you very much for the update today.
Stephen, thank you very much. I enjoyed it. Thank you. Have a good day.
That's Jeff Szyperski. He's the CEO at Chesapeake Financial Shares.